When the first dark shapes of the Hawker Hurricane appeared over France in 1940, German pilots expected little trouble. The Luftwaffe had entered the war with a reputation for speed and precision, flying their sleek Messerschmitt Bf-109s with confidence. In contrast, the Hurricane looked dated, almost unimpressive compared to its polished rivals. With its thick fuselage, fabric-covered wings, and rugged frame, it gave the impression of an aircraft built for endurance rather than elegance. At first glance, many German airmen dismissed it as a relic of a bygone era, no match for the cutting-edge fighters of the Reich. But first impressions would soon prove deceptive. While German intelligence underestimated the Hurricane, they quickly realized that this seemingly modest fighter carried qualities that made it far more dangerous than they had assumed. During the Battle of France and later the Battle of Britain, the Hurricane's presence became impossible to ignore. Unlike the Spitfire, which captured attention for its sleek beauty, the Hurricane was the backbone of the Royal Air Force. It flew in greater numbers, filling the skies with a resilience that Germany had not anticipated. For bomber crews, the Hurricane became a nightmare. Its steady, no-nonsense design allowed it to close in and tear through unescorted formations with bursts of deadly machine gun fire. While Messerschmitt pilots often held the advantage in speed and climb, the sheer number of Hurricanes in the sky shifted the odds dramatically. What the aircraft lacked in glamour, it made up for with reliability and grit. And if you're fascinated by how Germany truly perceived its most iconic wartime adversaries, make sure to like this video, share it with fellow aviation enthusiasts, and subscribe to the channel for more untold World War II stories. Soon, Luftwaffe pilots began to realize that dismissing the Hurricane was a grave mistake. Though overshadowed by the Spitfire in reputation, it was the Hurricane that bore the brunt of Britain's defense, meeting the German challenge head-on. To the men who faced it in combat, the Hurricane was no relic. It was a workhorse fighter that refused to back down. German engineers who examined the Hurricane during the war were surprised by its construction. Unlike the all-metal Messerschmitt Bf-109, the Hurricane retained a partly fabric-covered design on its rear fuselage and wings. At first, this seemed outdated, almost primitive in an age of aluminum skins and streamlined innovations. Yet in practice, the simplicity of its design gave the Hurricane a remarkable advantage. Damage that would cripple a Bf-109 could often be patched on a Hurricane in a matter of hours. Its structure absorbed punishment and returned to the fight quickly, a quality that did not go unnoticed by the Luftwaffe. The power plant was the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same heart that would later give the Spitfire its edge. While not as fast as the Bf-109 in a climb or dive, the Hurricane's Merlin offered reliable performance across altitudes, providing steady acceleration and dependable handling. Luftwaffe reports highlighted that the Hurricane, though slower, had a stability in turning fights that often caught German pilots off guard. In the right hands, it could outturn the Messerschmitt, forcing German fighters into prolonged engagements they preferred to avoid. Its armament of 8 303 Browning machine guns was also a surprise to German bomber crews. Individually, the rounds lacked heavy punch compared to cannons mounted on German fighters, but in concentrated streams, they shredded the lightly armored skins of Heinkel and Dornier bombers. Luftwaffe crews recalled how quickly a formation could lose cohesion when Hurricanes pounced, their guns raking across wings and engines. From a technical perspective, the Hurricane was never the fastest or most advanced fighter in the war. But Germany learned that numbers and ruggedness mattered just as much as elegance. Its wide landing gear allowed operations from rough, makeshift airfields, keeping squadrons in the air when the Luftwaffe expected them grounded. Its forgiving flight characteristics also meant that young RAF pilots could master it quickly. A luxury Germany, with its shrinking pool of veteran flyers, could not match as the war dragged on. For Germany, the Hurricane's strength lay not in innovation, but in practicality. It was a fighter designed for war, and in that role, it excelled. When the Luftwaffe unleashed its full fury against Britain in 1940, German pilots quickly learned that combat against the Hurricane was not as one-sided as they had imagined. The Battle of Britain placed the Hurricane squarely in the center of the fight, and its performance on the front line forced Germany to reassess its assumptions. While the Spitfire often clashed with Bf-109s, it was the Hurricane that met the bulk of German bombers head-on. Luftwaffe crews reported that Hurricanes seemed to appear in endless numbers, ripping into Heinkels, Dorniers, and Junkers formations with relentless determination. Bomber crews dreaded the moment when Hurricanes closed in. The fighters' ability to absorb return fire, stay steady under pressure, and unleash a hail of bullets made it particularly deadly. Luftwaffe reports detail how Hurricanes often ignored escorting fighters to focus on their true prey, the bombers. This tactical discipline gave Germany's bomber wings heavy casualties, sowing frustration and fear among crews who felt exposed despite the presence of the Bf-109s. In direct fighter engagements, the Hurricane had limitations. German pilots found their Bf-109s generally faster in climbs and dives, allowing them to dictate vertical maneuvers. But in horizontal turning fights, the Hurricane held the edge. Many Luftwaffe veterans admitted that underestimating a Hurricane in a turning contest was a costly mistake, as the aircraft's forgiving handling allowed British pilots to stay locked in dogfights longer than expected. As the war progressed, the Hurricane found new roles. In North Africa, German pilots faced squadrons using Hurricanes as fighter bombers, strafing ground targets and disrupting supply lines. Though increasingly outclassed by newer German fighters like the Bf-109F and the Focke-Wulf 190, the Hurricane continued to inflict damage. For German troops on the ground, the sight of Hurricanes diving low to unleash machine gun fire or bombs created a lasting impression of persistence. Germany's combat experience with the Hurricane left a paradoxical legacy. While not feared in the same way as the Spitfire, it was respected as the dependable fighter that refused to disappear. Wherever the Luftwaffe fought, the Hurricane seemed to endure, standing as a constant thorn in Germany's side. For Germany, the Hawker Hurricane represented more than just another RAF fighter. It became a symbol of Britain's unyielding resilience. During the Battle of Britain, Luftwaffe pilots expected their modern Bf-109s to easily dominate, but the sheer number of Hurricanes in the skies chipped away at that confidence. Pilots returning from missions often expressed disbelief at how many they had to face, as if every squadron downed was instantly replaced by another. This perception created the impression that Britain's aerial resources were endless, even when, in reality, every aircraft was precious. German bomber crews especially felt the psychological toll. They described the Hurricane's approach as relentless, its broad wings silhouetted against the sun before opening fire in a devastating burst. The aircraft itself was not intimidating in appearance, but its presence always signaled danger. Crews spoke of Hurricanes tearing into formations, forcing bombers to scatter, which often left them isolated and easy prey. Over time, the word Hurricane became synonymous with disruption and loss among Luftwaffe bomber units. The psychological effect extended to German ground forces as well. In North Africa, Hurricanes frequently swooped down on supply convoys, airfields, and advancing troops. Soldiers on the receiving end spoke of the unnerving sound of its Merlin engine, followed by sudden gunfire and explosions. While other Allied aircraft may have delivered heavier payloads, the Hurricane's constant harassment drained morale, instilling a sense that the RAF could strike anywhere, at any time. Perhaps most damaging of all was the Hurricane's reputation as a pilot's aircraft. German intelligence intercepted RAF reports praising its forgiving handling, making it easier for inexperienced pilots to survive combat. For Germany, this translated into a sobering reality. Britain could field large numbers of pilots, even novices, and still keep them combat effective. Against the backdrop of Germany's own attrition of veteran flyers, this realization weighed heavily. In the German psyche, the Hurricane evolved into a symbol of persistence, an aircraft that, despite lacking glamour, simply would not go away. It embodied the RAF's ability to endure punishment, adapt, and keep fighting, which proved just as damaging to German morale as bombs and bullets. In retrospect, Germany's view of the Hawker Hurricane was complex, shaped as much by respect as by criticism. To the Luftwaffe, the Hurricane was never the cutting-edge threat that the Spitfire represented. German pilots frequently described it as slower, less aerodynamic, and easier to outmaneuver in certain scenarios. Yet, despite these assessments, the Hurricane earned a place in German memory as the fighter that would not vanish, no matter how hard they struck. During the Battle of Britain, this aircraft carried the weight of Britain's defense, engaging the bulk of Germany's bombers, while the Spitfire guarded against the Bf-109. Luftwaffe crews recognized this reality, acknowledging that without the Hurricane, Britain's skies would have been far easier to dominate. For Germany, the Hurricane became less about technical specifications and more about the impact of sheer numbers and determination. As the war expanded beyond Britain, the Hurricane's presence followed. From the deserts of North Africa to the frozen fields of the Soviet Union, where Hurricanes were supplied through Lend-Lease, German forces repeatedly encountered the aircraft. Though outdated by mid-war standards, its adaptability impressed even German intelligence officers. Reports noted its transition from interceptor to ground attack aircraft, where it harassed convoys, strafed troops, and bombed supply lines. This versatility left an enduring mark, reminding Germany that even an older design could remain dangerous when used creatively. By the war's end, the Hurricane's reputation within Germany was tied not to elegance or technological superiority, but to persistence. It was the dependable fighter that kept reappearing on every front, often flown by determined pilots who refused to yield. Luftwaffe veterans later reflected that while they feared the Spitfire's speed and agility, it was the Hurricane that truly defined their day-to-day combat experience, grinding down bomber units and gnawing at morale. Germany's legacy of the Hurricane is one of reluctant respect. It was never glamorous, never the star of propaganda, yet its contributions proved decisive. For the Luftwaffe, the Hurricane symbolized the quiet, relentless force that helped deny them victory in the skies, leaving an impression that lasted long after the war had ended.